Hello, everybody. Welcome to Be Encouraged, the 4:30 program. Today we have a great guest, a guest that I've been looking forward to having on for a while. Michele Kohl. She is a professional canine trainer, and she's also works. And what they do is they train canines, dogs. We'll find out what kinds to help assist retrieve for veterans who are disabled. So we'll talk more about that, exactly what they do and how they do it. Stay tuned. Check this. Welcome back, everybody. It's Be Encouraged here on the More Joy Media Presents programming. And we have a special guest. Tura, our scheduler, found this young lady, and she is going to tell us a little bit about what goes into training the canines for service as service dogs for, especially this is what they train them for, helping our veterans, our disabled veterans. So, without further ado, let's bring Michele Kohl on, ladies and gentlemen. Michele, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I am excited to talk to you. I grew up. My aunt was a breeder, shower, trainer. You know, for dogs. She trained for shows, but we did collies, and then she switched to Schipperkes. Which are a pretty neat little breed. I don't know. It's a pretty good working class dog. I, for the first time, saw one in the, the big show they have in Madison Square Garden last year or so, and they made it to the finals, but couldn't be in the finals because the finals judge had a relationship with the breeder. So I was like, dang, because I saw him in the working group, And it was fantastic to see them win that. And it was just really neat because I knew all about Schipperkes, but I'd never known to see one on TV on any kind of show. So it was really cool. And then they kind of had the rug yanked out from underneath them, but that's okay. So tell me, though, first things first, Michele, you train service dogs for our veterans. And I'm curious as to what kind of dogs?
So
what breeds, mutts, what kind of dog?
So MK9 service dogs, we primarily are training Labrador retrievers and German shepherds.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I've seen some dogs of different breeds that some of our veterans have. In fact, I saw a veteran who had I want to say it was a Rhodesian Ridgeback. And the dog was beautiful and was so well trained and behaved. And I love Rhodesian Ridgeback. So I was really excited when I saw it. I was like, oh, that's cool. He had his vest on and everything. And definitely was a veteran who had some mobility issues. Well, not so much. He had, though, lost a limb, his leg. And so he was, you couldn't tell because of the genes. I could tell because of the gait of the veteran. But, I thought that was great that he had his dog with him. It could have been other things, I guess. So I'm just curious, though. That answers the question, though. I appreciate it. Tell me about how you guys got started.
So we are a 501c3 public charity, so we're a nonprofit. We saw a need that was out in our community, and so myself and a group of very dedicated volunteers made the decision that we would start Canine Service Dogs. And so that's how it started. We just recently placed one of our service dogs last month to his veteran who lives in Chantilly. So primarily right now, we have 28 veterans that we're working with who are in various phases of our application process, and they're all here in Northern Virginia.
That's outstanding. I've heard of other programs similar to yours on different things. One of my favorite shows is Mike, whatever his name is, who does the Returning the Favor effect. Right. And they did a show with a group that does trained dogs, service dogs also. And they're in Virginia somewhere. I mean, not here, like more like maybe Bristow or something like that is where they're located. I'm not sure.
Right.
But yeah.
There are several service dog organizations that work with veterans. How we're different. Everybody always wants to know what sets you apart. So how we're different is we actually, veterans come and apply for a service dog from us. They go through an application process, an in-person interview. We do what we call a home suitability assessment. So we go into their home, see how they live. And then what we do is then we go out and we use purpose-bred dogs. So they're coming from primarily service dog lines and to try to get the best possible candidate that we can. We test the puppies, and then we're looking for a specific puppy for that particular veteran. And then at 8 weeks of age, when we bring one of the puppies into our program, they actually then meet their particular veteran, and the veteran and the dog now are on the journey together. So the puppies live with volunteer mentors, but we have veteran relationship sessions so that the veteran is learning the language of the dog, understanding how to care for a dog. So over the roughly 18 months that our training process takes,
right,
it's something that is a gradual, becomes a lot of muscle memory for the veteran, how to hold a leash, how to walk, how to give commands, how to give rewards, what makes their dog's tail wag. And so we actually are giving hope to the veteran immediately. A lot of organizations train their dogs, and then when the dogs are fully trained, then they bring in the veterans. And so you're marrying up a fully trained dog with somebody who potentially has never even had a dog, and that can be overwhelming. So our method and our model has it that the veteran is part of the process.
Which makes a lot of sense. And I've seen other programs where they fully train, but then they spend a week of acclimation with the dog and the person. And that's, that's a good thing. I think most of your organizations like yourself have a real heart for veterans and really want to make this work for them. I've not seen especially because it's mostly always nonprofit. And, there's not a lot of money exchanging hands. It's not why they do it. And I'm sure that's not why you do it either. You said something about you had 4 professional trainers that work with you.
Right. And so, but as a 100% volunteer organization, everyone from the top level down to, everybody working with us, everybody's doing it for the love of the mission.
Yeah.
So the 4 professional dog trainers that work with us are giving us their time and their expertise at a pro bono. So we're very fortunate that I come from a full military background. My grandfather, my father, my husband all served in the Navy. Our son is currently active duty in the Navy. So I do have a passion for the members of the armed services.
Well, no, I can tell. So let me see. What else did I wanted? I wanted to ask you several questions, and now they're all fluttering out of my head. I wanted to ask a lot of questions. I love dogs. I've always been a big dog guy. We don't have a dog now, but at some point, maybe I'll talk to my wife and see if we can be a puppy holder or whatever it is you call it.
You could be a canine mentor, or we
there
also
you go,
have
mentor.
That, if they can't make the full 18-month commitment, we have sitters. So we train people to then be able to take puppies into their home for 3 days, a week, sometimes longer. So we're also exposing our puppies to a whole different variety of living situations.
Sure.
And from the very beginning, from 8 weeks of age, since we know what the veteran needs, we're able to start training the puppy in a play environment to begin with, those things that eventually they will have to be trained to do for their veteran.
Sure. No, that makes obviously a lot of sense. But being a sitter, I'll have to maybe contact you. I don't think my wife's going to let it happen, but it's a different kind of puppy than your average tear up the furniture kind of guy. You also, though, I understand, train canine athletes. Is that true?
Right. So I'm a certified canine athlete specialist.
Okay.
And since, service dogs are working dogs, they need to be in the best, physical and mental health. And so we have a canine enrichment program that's part of our training program.
Right.
So that our dogs are able to withstand the rigors of being a service dog.
That's awesome. I don't know if you've heard also another thing that just came to my mind. Fairfax County Police have just started a program for their officers who have witnessed traumatic situations. I mean, you can name them all, but they have service dogs, or that they send home with the officer for a couple days. So the officer has that, and the dog senses whether or not there's some depression or something like that coming on, and they can get over there and snuggle with the officer or whatever. I got to tell you, I was proud of Chief Rossler for instituting that program with Fairfax County Police, because it's so necessary. I just recently, a veteran friend, his son is in the military, MP, and he's already on his base, unfortunately been the first on scene on 2 different suicides by gun. So obviously just a traumatic scene, and there's nothing there for him, and if you ask for help, then they say, oh, I guess you can't handle the job. Ridiculous. But anyway, so what other kinds of training do your dogs go through? What's the most difficult part of the training for the dogs?
So I think the most difficult part of the training for the dogs is when we're teaching them like a nightmare interruption, because the trainers are the ones training those behaviors. And so we're trying to best mimic what the veteran has relayed to us, either by writing it down, videos, so that we can replicate what that will look like. So then we can train the dog how they're supposed to respond when that happens. And so I think for our dogs, the biggest challenge is, but I know you're okay, because we as the trainers, we're not having that nightmare.
Right.
But
Right.
So, but it's very exciting when, like the service dog that we just placed last month, when his veteran relayed that he was having a really bad night, and his dog did exactly what we had trained him to do. Nice. And woke him up, and went through the whole sequence, that the dog had been trained, that we had also trained the veteran that when this happens and the dog is alerting you, then you need to do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the dog can tell you there's a problem, but you need to say, okay, I need to get up, get a drink of water, turn on,
Right.
acknowledge the fact that something was happening. So,
Right.
so that's always very exciting for us when our veterans can relay, hey, the thing you taught the dog is exactly what he did last night when I was having a really bad night. So
Awesome. And you get up and you praise the dog, obviously, as part of that. I'm guessing. Thank you, buddy. You do that, or do you give them a reward? What
so
happens
at the
after the
point,
wake up?
right. So what the dog would do is once the veteran has woken up, he acknowledged the fact that the dog has gotten him up. He gets out of bed, he goes to the bathroom or wherever, gets a drink of water, and he's praising the dog, telling the dog
Good
that
boy.
you did a great job, and that's exactly what I needed. And if the veteran still isn't 100%, back together,
Right.
if he wants the dog to come and sleep with him to then do deep pressure therapy, so kind of a grounding for the veteran, then that's something that they can ask the dog to come up and do. So our dogs just don't jump in bed to be sleeping with you. They have to be invited to come into bed.
Good. So. That's cool. Yeah. I mean, I can tell you this. I've watched my sister's dogs before. And when I was a kid, when we had a dog for 18 years. He was a spaniel, beautiful, wonderful mix, Springer and water spaniel mix. And I used to love when he slept up in the bed. And again, he didn't get in the bed unless I called him.
Right.
But he'd come up, and I just love snuggling with him. He's such a good boy. He was such a good dog. And my sister's dogs are scaredy cats. And any kind of rainstorm or anything like that, those dogs are in my lap. And they're big. They're Wheaten Terriers. So, but it's like, you little chicken. No, but I'm kidding. I soothe them and I praise them and I tell them they're good. And they even have thunder suits that they wear.
Right.
Yeah. How do you train? How do you not get a dog like that, though? I mean, is that something you can tell as a puppy is going to be a problem?
You can. I mean, so first, since the way our organization is getting purpose-bred dogs. So we actually go in and temperament test the puppies between 7 and 8 weeks of age. So we do a lot of different activities for the puppy to have to challenge him and see how resilient he is, see how confident he is, see how willing he is to work with somebody who he's never met before.
Correct.
So that's what we're looking for. And we only test one puppy at a time, because when you see puppies in a litter, it's like this big pack of dogs.
Yeah. The pack mentality.
Right. Well, and they also gain strength and courage because they're a group. But when you take an individual dog out and they're in an environment that they've never been in before,
right?
A room in the house that the dog has never been exposed to, and then a person that the dog has never been exposed to, and just a lot of different things happening roughly in like a 10-minute period of time. You can really tell whether the dog has that initial temperament that we're looking for. If a dog just sits there and is like, I'm not moving because I'm totally afraid,
right,
or runs back over and is crying at the door, let me out of here, then we stop the test, because we're not going to do something that's going to stress out a puppy, but we're looking for that puppy that's like, cool, you've got this really weird, piece of siding. Sure, I'll walk on that, even though it's making all kinds of weird sounds. And, you can pick me up and turn me on my back, and you can, drop a can that's full of, metal and makes this big loud crash. And I'm going to go check that out and see what that was. So,
I can imagine, because obviously there's going to be, my sister's dogs, 4th of July is horrible for them. Thunderstorms obviously are a problem, but I think that's a breed issue also, because she was informed of that before, while they were still little puppies, that might be an issue. And but a lot of our veterans with PTSD have issues with fireworks and with loud noises as well. And it wouldn't do for having them freaking out and the dog freaking out.
Right, exactly. And that's really why we made the decision just to use purebred dogs, because a lot of times getting dogs from shelters, you don't know their whole history.
Correct.
And what we're trying to do is pretty much take a relatively blank slate and then give it good information and information at an appropriate level that the dog can then just continue to build their confidence and say, I got this. This is not a problem.
Can you train, are your dogs also protective?
No, because you can have protection is not allowed in a service dog under the American with Disabilities Act.
Okay.
And what we're doing is we're trying to have our veterans continue on their healing journey. Yeah. So we want them to be getting back out into the community. We want people to, approach them. And so and that's why we use the types of dogs that we do, is they're more, especially Labrador retrievers. Everybody loves a Labrador retriever. And so it's also, all of our dogs are named after a fallen veteran. And so there's the story behind the dog's name. So again, it's something that the veteran can say, yeah, my dog was named after, Chris Kyle, he was a Navy SEAL and blah, 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 blah. So.
Right. So the dog might be named CK.
Right. Well, actually, that particular dog was named Legend because Chris Kyle wanted
Legend. Right.
One of his nicknames was Legend.
Yeah, of course, because he was. So another question I had for you about, what about other pets in the house? If you have a service dog, can you have other pets in the house? And if so, what kinds?
So before we even bring in a puppy, we do a home suitability assessment of that veteran's home. So we see if they do have other pets, whether dogs, cats, whatever. So long as they are not aggressive dogs, if they've been well socialized, we introduce our service dog in training to the family pets. We also have some of our mentors have cats. We personally have 4 of our own retired working dogs. So we have that ability to bring a puppy in so that they understand that living with other dogs is okay. The veteran knows that the service dog is his particular dog. And so if it's a family pet, the family helps support that family pet so that the service dog is able to actually do his job.
Right. And the dog knows that that's his personal person.
Right, because we do scent imprinting. So our veterans give us articles of clothing that they've slept with. So that's what our puppies sleep with. So we always get a dirty T-shirt so that the scent is always fresh in the crate.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. And, I have a very family member who was a police officer, and he had a tracking dog. So it's a pretty aggressive dog, trained to be so. And that's why he couldn't be a bomb dog. He could be a drug dog, but he couldn't be a bomb dog because they like to bite the scent, and that's not good for bombs. But they also had 2 golden labs, and the 3 dogs didn't get along. So he had to crate his dog, his canine, and he had a run in the backyard for his canine.
Right.
So the dog could run and exercise and stuff. And then of course the yellow labs were very well trained, and you could call them, go and tell them to go somewhere, and they would go knowing I think in their minds, I don't know, maybe not, that Mick was coming out, and they knew they needed to go be somewhere while Mick was out. He was a Czechoslovakian Shepherd.
Right.
And so super, super smart. But yeah, they didn't mix it. And when the story was, when Lance was there, he could let Mick out with the lads, and Mick wouldn't do anything. But he had to have Mick crated if he wasn't home.
Right.
Because if somebody let Mick out and he wasn't there with his commands and stuff, and the two other dogs got into it with him, there would be some damage, and most likely Mick would win.
Right.
So, but that, and so canines have always been an outstanding thing for me to watch. I just love watching the dogs. I love watching, especially I work with kids who are physically disabled, and a few of them have dogs that help them, and they're allowed to come into the school. I work in a high school in Fairfax County.
Right.
And the PD pod, but there's only like 2 kids that had, I think some of them had dogs at home though, because of the pod, they don't need the dog because somebody's with them. They have an assistant that's with them. Right. So they don't need the dogs. But there was one kid who I remember, and the dog was just joyful, but definitely stayed with him. Talk to me real quick about 2 different things. First, what about other people wanting to pet the dog while it's working and that kind of thing? How do you, the veterans, how do y'all handle that?
So first, our dogs wear vests that say service dogs do not pet. If somebody comes and approaches, if the veteran does not want someone to touch their dog because they're visually able to see that person approaching, they just say, please don't pet him, he's working. And so most people, what we found in our Northern Virginia area, most people are very respectful of that. Sometimes, but that's also part of the training that we do with our dogs, is that if some little kid comes rushing up, they don't
get startled.
Is just trained to just totally ignore that, does not solicit behavior, doesn't ask to be petted. So it's all part of the training too, because people are reaching before they're ever asking permission sometimes. And so the dogs just learn to look at their veteran and say, okay, you need to tell me, should I say hello or should I just sit here and ignore the person?
And so there's also times though when, say, a little kid goes, look, mommy, it's a cute doggy. And the veteran can say, come on over, you can pet him. There's that time they can take him off. So what do they say to their dog to the dog doesn't get nervous about someone else touching them?
So we just tell our dogs that they can go say hi.
Oh, okay.
And so and we have lots of little kids in our volunteer network. And so we pretty much have babies on up to high school, college kids. And so the dogs just get used to some little kids running, screaming around or throwing a ball or whatever. It's like, I'm just supposed to sit here and watch it. I mean, when they're not working, they're not, when they're off duty, then they're just a regular dog. They have fun, but they've been bred to know that they have a job to do. So they love to work. So we always want to make sure that our dogs are in a healthy environment so they can do their job and enjoy the job that we've asked them to do.
Yeah, that's cool. I do remember one time I worked at a place, I was a security person, and one of our residents was blind, and she had a dog. And a little different, though, I think, than what you guys deal with. So all I remember is that one night when she was exercising him, she went across the street, and there's an area for the dog to run in, and she unleashed him and lets him run, and he runs back. But he's not, when he gets told that he's not working and he can run around, he's not totally listening. I mean, he wants, he wants his time, to run around, I think. And I helped her one day. I was walking back there and she's calling for him and he's not responding. And so I said, well, what's his name? And she told me, and I called for him and he came right over to her,
Right.
not to me, but he came straight to her when I called his name. Of course, I have a little bit more of a bellow of a voice. So, but yeah, he thought, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. And he came running back to her and she was able to put his harness back on and go back into the apartment. But what's the difference between a seeing eye dog and a dog who does retrieval and stuff like that you guys deal with? It's probably a lot of differences.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the main difference for a seeing eye, a guide dog, is their job is to help navigate safely their visually impaired person from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
And so anybody that interferes with that, it can actually be life-threatening to that visually impaired person, like, oh, let me help you across the street, or getting waved across the street or whatever. The job of the dog is to make sure that they get to the other side of the street together safely.
Right.
For us, so our veterans primarily have PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, and we do work with some veterans that have mobility issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the veterans with PTSD, you've heard they're called invisible wounds. And so you can look like normal, but
Mm-hmm.
you've got a lot going on. And so so part of our training with our veterans is coaching them on, a gatekeeper challenge. What if somebody comes up and says, get out, that's not a service dog. You don't need a service dog. You can see, blah, blah, blah. So we work really hard with our veterans to coach them through, this is what you're supposed to say. If your dog is behaving appropriately, most people do not bother you. If your dog is out of control, then legally you can be asked to leave, and you as the person can be serviced, but your dog would not be allowed in the restaurant. So we do a lot of public access work with our dogs. And so part of their test at the end is throwing food on them, and they're just supposed to ignore it. And because you just don't want a dog that's like a little Hoover vacuum cleaner in a restaurant. Right. So.
Right. No, I understand. And here's the next question I wanted to ask you. And this is probably rile you up a little bit, but speaking to what you just spoke about, there also are a lot of advocates for service dogs that deal with people who are claiming their dogs are service dogs so they can have access to stores and things like that. And so I'm sure you're probably going to have some of those that are going to say, that think they're smart Alex, and they're going to come up and say, that's not a real service dog. And they're trying to be helpful, trying to say, no, you can't have that's not real or whatever. I'm sure they're more easily talked into the fact that it is real. But then there's also people, I don't know, but what do you think about the people who, I guess I probably already know what you think. The people who try and fake out and have put vests on their dogs that are not real.
So part of the issue with that is those dogs are not trained to be able to handle whatever comes their way. So you're really, a lot of the airlines, when you heard about all those bites or incidents that were happening, those were not service dogs.
Right.
Those were non-service dogs. And a lot of times dogs that don't have the mental fortitude, if you're being put into a situation because, I want my pet to come with me, so I'm going to go online and slap a jacket on them and stuff, you're actually really putting yourself, your dog, and the general public at risk. And so, if somebody comes up to you, they can ask you, is that a service dog? And what task has your dog been trained to help you? Those are two questions they're allowed to ask. They can't say, like the dog and pony show, show me what your dog can do. No,
Right.
Not allowed. But
and you train your veterans how to handle that without getting pissed off.
We do, and that's really, and we explain to them what their rights are legally under the ADA, as well as what their state laws are,
Right.
so that they're able to articulate. And the more you have knowledge of something, then you have confidence in the fact that, yes, if my dog is behaving appropriately, I do have the right to be in this store, even if I don't look like I have a disability. So you can't always assume. And really, when you go out, you can see the true service dogs are the dogs that are well behaved. You really a lot of times don't even know they're there.
Right.
So, and that's a true testament. I mean, a dog that's basically lunging and barking and everything, that is not a service dog, or that dog is having a bad day, and that dog should not be out in public. So,
and dogs do.
Right.
Dogs do have bad days, and it's like, yeah, we're gonna stay home today because he's not feeling well. Whatever. Let's go to the vet. Whatever.
Right.
I can imagine. Yeah. Now, do they call you, or do they have? How does that work? If say a dog does get sick for a vet who really requires that, right? Requires his retrieval dog. What do they do when, in fact, their dog gets sick and has to go to the vet, maybe stay overnight with the vet? What's the issue there? They just kind of have to go with it, or what?
So primarily what happens is, so all of our veterans are assigned a veterinarian that has cared for the dog pretty much from puppyhood on. So they already know the health history of the dog. All of our dogs are extremely healthy. If perchance, like all of a sudden your dog starts getting diarrhea, the first call is to me, because I'm the director of operations. So they would call me, and we'd, first have the conversation of, well, what does it look like? How bad is it, or whatever. And then make the determination, okay, these are the things you can do, or no, you need to call your assigned veterinarian and go in and be seen for care. If it was something catastrophic, like the dog got hit by a car, or had a
bit by a snake
or whatever, then they know their closest emergency vet. And so en route, I'm one of the first people that they're contacting to say, this has happened and this is where we're going. And so I can be in communication as well with the veterinarian. All of our veterinarians have different level of sponsorships for our dogs for their life. So, because it can become extremely expensive. If you go in and your dog ate something and it's a $10,000 vet bill. So, and we also, part of the training is what is appropriate and what's not appropriate to feed your dog and give your dog as a toy to play with. And but life happens and something happens, but we then just help support the veteran through it. So.
Well, Michele, we've gone way over to more time than we told you to expect. I thank you so much. There's so much more I'm sure we could talk about. I'd love to hold a little card over here that says we can invite you back another time and talk. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that'd be super. I can talk about this all day long.
And I could hear and listen to you all day long. We've got all kinds of comments, people talking about how great the show is and how great my guest is. I appreciate you, Michele, and thank you very much for coming on with us, ladies and gentlemen. This is Michele, and name your organization again for me.
Canine Service Dogs.
M
as in Mary.
As in military or Mary.
Right.
Canine
Service Dogs.
Service. And is that your email address also?
Yes, and that if you just go to mcanines.org, mk9servicedogs.org, you can see cute puppy pictures, some of our veterans, ways to help us out.
Cool.
So
mk9servicedogs.org.
Right.
Fantastic. Michele, thank you so much for coming on the program. I appreciate it. And we will definitely have to reach out and have you back on another time. Okay.
Sounds great. We
All right.
really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Michele. Take care.
Take care.
Well, there she goes, ladies and gentlemen, Michele Kohl. She's fantastic. I love what she's doing for the community. I invite you guys all to go to mk9servicedogs.org. Let me make a banner here real quick. mk9servicedogs.org. And we'll put that up. You can see that right there, mk9servicedogs.org. And go to that website. You'll see it. She said some cute little puppies. And I'm sure they need sponsors and they need people to contribute to help them defray costs. This, ladies and gentlemen, is definitely one of those organizations that you need to reach out and support because they're doing awesome work in this world for our people who protect us and have protected us and given us the freedoms that we enjoy and the freedoms to make money. So you're making money, ship some over to mk9servicedogs.org. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I appreciate you. Wanted to give a shout out, as I always do when you like and share, Clark Crawford, Pat Malone, and Nate Daniels. Nate Daniels, we're going to have him back on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again so much for joining us. Have a wonderful day.